Hey everyone, welcome back to Book Chats with T and G. I do have a special guest today. Here's Kissy! It's my girl. It's my baby girl. She's the one who does all the reading with me. She likes to be held like a little baby, so say hi, Goose. Hey. She's in my room, and it's been a while, so she's a little skirmish. But I'll set her down. So the first book that I wanted to go over and review is Tender as the Flesh. I was gifted this book from my good friend Trinity for Christmas when we did our book exchange, and I just read it the other day, so it's fresh on my mind. I'm not gonna lie, still traumatized from this book. But Jocelyn and I read it together. It took us about 6 hours. It's not a very long book. Here is the front cover. It is by Agustina Bazterrica. It's only 219 pages. It's a very quick read, I would say. It's set in a dystopian fiction type of way, and it's a psychological horror, I would say, in the sense of that it's based on cannibalism, and kind of how it got to that. It's very gruesome, it's gory, and at points, I would say, for me, it makes me want to throw up, just for the fact of that there's very detailed descriptions of how they go through the special meat packaging process, which is how they deal with the human flesh. But I would give it 3 out of 5 stars. I mean, it's a very good read. Looking back at it now, but when I was first reading it, I was just didn't want to talk. I didn't want to eat. It was rough. So I'm going to kind of read you the back of the book in case you don't have it on you or haven't ever heard of it before. But it says, if everyone was eating human meat, would you? Marcos is in the business of slaughtering humans, only no one calls them that. He works with numbers, consignments, processing. One day he was given a specimen of the finest quality. He leaves her tied up in an outhouse, a problem to be disposed of later. But she haunts Marcos. Her trembling body and watchful gaze seems to understand, and soon he becomes tortured by what has been lost and what might still be saved. And so basically what this book is about, I would say, as I said earlier, cannibalism. We get introduced to Marcos, who works at the meat processing plant. They have to call it special meat because if you do call it human meat, then it's not legal. And then they have every single part of the body, like, is called some part of what agricultural animals would be called. So, like, you have, oh, it's flank steak, or oh, this is like, ribeye. They call it certain things like that throughout the book. But it all became a thing because of all the agriculture animals. They caught a virus that infected all the meat, and so when humans would eat it, they would die. Cats and dogs also got infected as well with the virus, and if you got bit by one of them, you would get the virus and then you would die. So what I would say about that is basically they had to go around the whole entire world and dispose of all the animals however they saw fit. And then they all were just like, oh, we'll be vegan. Like, there's no problem there. Like, let's just do that. There wasn't enough protein actually through being vegan, they said, that was able to sustain them. So they were losing a lot of weight. Many more people were dying. And so that's when they decided to start legalizing cannibalism. And we get taken through the whole process of kind of the meat processing, where, how they capture them, how they breed them. A lot of them are bred in captivity, is what they call it, and they have your first generation pure, which is completely pure human, like the best of the best meat is what they would call it. And that's actually one of the girls who actually Marcos, he gets her dropped off at his house. And all these humans that are bred for being eaten all have their tongues not tongues cut out, that's Hunger Games, but their vocal cords taken out so they can't speak. So they don't have a choice in it. A lot of them are bred in captivity, so they don't know any better. And if you do end up sleeping with one of the ladies, then she has a baby and then gets eaten, and then you get slaughtered as well for that, because that is a crime. But we go through Marcus's mind and kind of what he's thinking throughout the whole entire process. He's kind of, well, if I do it, I'm not really doing anything bad, but if I don't do it, then that's a crime. If you're trying to help them and protect them, then that's a crime. You get slaughtered. Either way, it's a lose-lose situation. It's not really a win-win either. Um, but as you go throughout this book, you can kind of see him switch from how he's not really accepting it to then he kind of switches over and he's kind of trying to make little ways of how he accepts it, and he's trying to justify his means because he has one of the women. So he's like going against the rules, but he's also going with the rules. We also get taken through his life with his dad, his sister, his wife, who is not living with him throughout this book because they had lost a baby at the beginning of the book. And that took a toll on them, so they are separated at the moment, and they don't want to go through that again. But basically, this book is very, very gruesome. If you like dystopian fiction, I would read it, but also if you're more into horror, I would say it's for you. I wouldn't, yes, it's dystopian, but it's more horror than anything because at multiple points in the books, you will want to throw up. My friend Jocelyn, she annotates her books. And with this comes a lot of comments like, what the heck? And then enter throw up noise. And there's about half of that throughout the whole entire book. There's also, they have ranges where they have people with green crosses on their forehead marked that they go for hunting grounds for humans to hunt humans. That's also how some celebrities can pay off their debt, and they have to say, oh, a few hours out there, a few days out there, a few weeks out there. And if you live, your debt's paid off. But if you get killed, well, you're killed and you can't do anything about it. They also want pregnant women out there so that the humans are able to eat the baby and the woman as well. It's a very dark, dark book, but again, if you like the dark horror, read it. This was my kind of first book outside my genre that I've read in a long time, and I'm kind of shocked about the whole thing, to be honest. But I get it. I get it. So, one of the things that my friend Jocelyn said about this book was that there's no winners here, only those who share their victories, which is very true because they hold, so at those hunting grounds they literally stand with the humans that they killed, get pictures of them, or cut their heads off, or display the heads in their rooms, or it's all crazy. But the one thing they mention throughout the entire book is that they don't want to put a name to the body. They don't want names put to the body because then it seems more radical, like more logical in that sense. Throughout this book, it's a very unreliable narrator stuck between superior morality, personal gain, and societal norms. So basically, I'm going to start spoilers now, so if you do not want anything spoiled, please exit the video now. Let me know if you read it. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you would even read it after hearing what it's about. But basically, throughout this, he gets this girl he has to take care of, and at first he keeps her in the barn, and he just feeds her water and food through like a dog and cat food bowl. Goes throughout that, and then as he gets more lonely, he brings her inside, and then he starts sleeping with her. And he puts her in clothes, he teaches her how to eat, how to take care of herself. He has cameras on her throughout the whole day that he checks in on her. And he goes, through loss of his child and wanting to have another child. He goes through loss of his wife and sleeping with her as a way to fulfill that need. He also cheats on his wife throughout this whole book. But one day he's, out walking at the zoo that he used to go through with his dad because his dad ended up passing earlier in the book. And he goes to lay his ashes to rest there. And he sees 4 little puppies. Super cute, but also, if you get bit by one, you're dead. Well, he goes up, he ends up naming them all, loves on them. Well, later, as you can start to see the psychological twist, after his father died, he goes back to the zoo, and he sees teenagers throwing the puppies in the air, beating them with a stick, bashing their heads against the walls till they explode, and then they set one on fire. So he just walked away. He's like, okay, well, can't do anything about that, and walked away. So you can kind of see how he's like, okay, now I don't have anything to do with them. They're just dogs. And so then he starts to switch his view on the girl, and the girl ends up pregnant, and she ends up having the baby at the end of the book. and it is terrible because this baby's trying to come out feet first. Calls his wife, because his wife used to be a nurse before all this happened, before she got psychologically messed up by the loss of her child, which, fair. But calls her and goes, hey, I need your help. Come help me. And he goes, you need to have an open mind. Just come help me. I can't tell you over the phone. So she gets there in person, realizes that he's cheating on her, and she snaps into nurse mode, goes and helps her. And then next thing you know, I'm just gonna read this because this is ridiculous. So she has the baby, and the guy is sitting behind her saying, good job, it's a little baby boy, you did a good job. And then he goes, easy does it, everything is gonna be just fine, take it easy. With a wet rag, he wipes the sweat from her forehead. He sings Summertime into her ear. When she calms down a little, he stands up and grabs her by her hair. Jasmine is only able to move her hands, is trying to reach her son. She wants to speak, to scream, but there are no words. He picks up the club he brought from the kitchen and hits her on the forehead, right where she's been branded. Jasmine falls to the floor, stunned, unconscious. Cecilia jumps up from where she hears the thud and looks at him with understanding. Why? She yells. She could have given us more children. As he drags the body to the female to the barn to slaughter it, he says to Cecilia, his voice radiant, so pure it wounds. She had the human look of a domesticated animal. He was in love with this woman, or at least pretended to be, throughout the entire book. He replaced his wife for her, who is Cecilia. And then he just hits her in the middle of the head, which is the first process of when they bring in a human to slaughter. Hits her in the middle of the head to go then and slit her neck and slaughter her to be eaten throughout the rest of their life. And it's just kind of a crazy ending. I wasn't expecting that. I will say that is a twist. But I don't know. This book took me through a lot of emotions. One more in particular than any others, which was throwing up. I definitely couldn't eat after it. But what I will say is this book, honestly, you should read it. I think you should, especially if you like horror. But it takes you outside your comfort zone a little bit. It makes you think, oh, this might happen in the future. I mean, we've already had a pandemic with COVID-19. Who's to say, animals don't get affected by something, And just seeing kind of how that would actually work in the real world. But to say, is this Goose approved? Is it Goose approved? I would say not. My Goosey, she loves her little horror. But I don't think supports cannibalism. I don't either. And she sides with me. So we're just gonna call it not Goose approved. That doesn't mean it's not a good read. It is a good read. So just let me know what you think. Let me know if you would ever read it in the future. And hopefully next week I will have a more upbeat video for y'all. Something that's more of a lighter read. I would say I'm probably going to do it on A Court of Thorns and Roses, just the first book in the series, because I don't want to spoil too much about it. But again, I will at the end of the video. But thank you all for watching and coming to another episode of Book Chats with G&G, and I look forward to seeing you next time.